Thank you very much, Deputy President. It's my great pleasure to rise and speak on the Economic Recovery Package JobMaker Hiring Credit Amendment Bill 2020. And in doing so, I proudly say, in addressing Senator Faruqi's concerns that she has raised about choice, this is about choice. This is about a government that's making a choice to back young Australians. And I have to say, and I think many supporters of the Greens parties and to some extent Labor as well, would be shocked to see the level of opposition to the JobMaker scheme that we are now hearing in the debate in this Senate. Because what this says to young Australians is the Morrison government stands with you. We recognise that you are Australia's future. We recognise that at this time of enormous uncertainty in our nation, in the midst of a pandemic, your future is critical to our economic recovery. And that is why we are backing young Australians with this really important scheme. Of course, we have seen, Madam Deputy President, unprecedented economic support delivered by this government in the form of JobKeeper, $101 billion, JobSeeker, a doubling of the safety net, a massive amount of support for young Australians, not just with this scheme, but 100,000 new apprenticeships and traineeships are being supported by a 50% wage subsidy. The new Job Trainer Fund, which will create up to 340,000 free or low-cost training places for school leavers and job seekers. And of course, more than 11 million taxpayers will get a tax cut, which has now been backdated to the 1st of July this year. Right across this economy, our government stands with all Australians as we battle this terrible pandemic and as we work hard together in our economic recovery. So the JobMaker hiring credit is a partnership forged between the Australian government, Australian employers and younger Australians. The hiring credit is designed to provide businesses with incentives to take on additional young job seekers. It's designed, as our economy recovers from the ravages of the COVID pandemic, to assist young people access job opportunities. Targeted at 16 to 35-year-olds, this important financial support will provide the JobKeeper hiring credit to employers for every new job created over the course of the next 12 months. It recognises that when employers are making choices about who to bring on their books, who to hire, there is that incentive to bring on young people who may not have the experience of older workers and therefore may otherwise end up at the back of the queue. We are determined that young job seekers under a Morrison government will not be at the back of the queue. We want all job seekers to get a fair choice. And it is extraordinary in Senator Faruqi's contribution that she talks about supporting the public sector and not the private sector, which of course employs 8 out of 10 Australians. So why would the Greens be focusing on the public sector and not on the private sector and demonising profits as if they were somehow evil? Because it is profits which create jobs. If businesses do not make a profit, they cannot hire employees. So I just find the way in which the Greens have deserted young Australians in opposing this bill to be quite extraordinary. This, in fact, represents a $4 billion commitment from the Morrison government to support an estimated 450,000 positions for young Australians, and I say the word support. And a great deal of my focus as a Senator of Victoria, and particularly in the Geelong region, in Ballarat, in Bendigo, in Gorton, in my patron seats, is to stand up for all those wonderful job opportunities in those regional parts of regional Victoria. And there are many wonderful employers in regional Victoria who want to do everything they can to get out there, to get through this as quickly as they can. And at last the ring of steel has come down or been lifted in Victoria, which of course means that Melburnians can now travel to regional Victoria and support thousands of wonderful businesses in regional Victoria, and particularly in hospitality, particularly in tourism, where so many young Victorians get an opportunity to work, perhaps for the first time. This is an incredibly important scheme, as I say, on top of the other incredible support that we have announced and delivered as part of our response, including, of course, the $101 billion for JobKeeper. So under this bill, eligible employers will be able to receive $200 per week for every additional eligible employee hired, aged between 16 and 29, and $100 for 30 to 35-year-olds. And it's to be paid for up to 12 months from the job creation date for new jobs created right through until the 6th of October 2021. This is a program aimed fairly and squarely at giving hope for the future for young Australians, for young Australian job seekers. And I think when we look back at how our government has responded to this pandemic, all Australians will look back with an incredible amount of pride. And it does disappoint me that there is not more bipartisanship across the political divide when you look at how hard our government has worked to ensure that all Australians are supported. This program features a credit and reporting system through the Australian Tax Office to facilitate the initiative. There will be robust integrity measures drawing on the existing regulatory and enforcement infrastructure of taxation law and, of course, other laws relating to unfair dismissal. And again, I really do take issue with the Greens characterising this as some way which is going to lead to the exploitation of young workers, because frankly we have very strong laws in this country to prevent and prohibit underpayment, to prevent and prohibit exploitation, and any employer which exploits or underpays any employee, I say shame. And the law must and should come down very, very heavily on every single employer who thinks that they can get away with this. And I'm very pleased to see, and including in the evidence before the Senate Economics Legislation Committee, that there was much broad support for this initiative from the likes of the Property Council of Australia, the Council of Small Business Organisations, the Australian Retailer Association, and the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Melbourne University's Professor Jeff Borland said that it was his judgment that the size of the impact on young people and the potential scarring effects are large enough that, if you were going to target any job creation measure to a group, it would be to young people. It would be to young people. And it is shocking to me, as I say, that there is so much opposition to these incredibly important initiatives. Youth unemployment is one of the biggest issues that we face as a country. And this is such an incredibly important measure to make sure we do not leave young Australians behind. I mean, we recognise that in the committee report and throughout those hearings there were some concerns identified, and Treasury has provided very firm advice in relation to the remedies which are available in the Fair Work Act and through the Fair Work Ombudsman, and of course including through administrative processes of the ATO. And I do also say, of course, there are very strong prohibitions in relation to discrimination against older Australians who are seeking work. And we do, of course, have a number of programs specifically targeted to older Australians. These measures provide historic support for young Australians. They are a very important part of our response, our massive economic response to the coronavirus pandemic, and it is a pleasure to commend this bill to the Senate. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Henderson.